Wall Street closes higher on Friday on encouraging economic data ahead of the FOMC meet this week. Stocks in Europe hit a two-year high after the ECB holds interest rates steady. Asian markets trade mostly higher and the GIFT Nifty is also suggesting a gap-up start for the Indian market. Crude prices rise over 6% last week and build on gains today after drone strikes result in the deaths of 3 U.S. troops near the Syrian border in Jordan. Brent now trades above $84 a barrel. And Samina Hamid steps down as non-executive vice chairman of Cipla as promoters look to get in professional management. Meanwhile, LIC gets a nod from the RBI to increase its stake in HDFC Bank up to 9.99%. In key earnings to track today, a soft third quarter is expected from ITC, while BPCL is expected to report a significant decline in EBITDA. Also watch for earnings from Bajaj Finance. And after dumping the BJP less than 18 months ago, Nitish Kumar took oath as Bihar Chief Minister for the 9th time on Sunday to form a new government in the state with the BJP. It is also the third time since 2020 Assembly polls that Kumar has been sworn in as the Chief Minister. Good morning. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we're tracking this morning. Welcome to Power Breakfast and welcome to what promises to be a hectic week for the markets. We have lots to really tackle this week, whether it's the budget, the FOMC decision, a whole slew of big earnings that are scheduled as well. So we're going to take you through all of that. What's good is that we're definitely starting this week with pretty positive global cues. So if you look at Asia, most of those markets are trading higher as well. And what's leading the gains this morning is the Nikkei market. It has been pretty shaky for the Japanese market all through the start of this year. But right now it's up around 290 points over there. The Hong Kong market's also seeing a 1.5% move right at the start of the trading session. So looking very solid there. Taiwan is up around 0.5%. You have a lot of the other markets also which are doing quite well. So Kospi, Straits, both of those managing to see some gains as well. Even Shanghai is actually very flat right now, but the rest of the markets holding up with what is a pretty decent way to start off the trading session. So Asia is looking good. Let's also bring the GIFT Nifty up for you because after that, pretty rough week that we had last week, it's at least looking like we're going to start quite well. It's a big gap up start that we're looking at for the GIFT Nifty, 159 points higher over there. So that's the shape of Asia. But let's also talk about the US markets now because we are reacting to 2 days of cues, right, from the US. For Friday, we saw quite a mixed close coming in. The Dow gained about 60 points. Both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite slipped to close into the negative territory. But if you look at it for the full week, it was quite all right for the US. So the Nasdaq was the big outperformer. It finished 1.3% higher. The S&P 500 was up over 1% as well. And the Dow Jones saw a gain of around 0.5%. This is for all of last week. Now we have CNBC's Steve Kovac, who's here to bring us a wrap of all of the action that we saw on Wall Street. Steve.
U.S. markets were little changed today, but finished with another week of gains after the newest economic data showed the economy moving in a positive direction. The Dow gained 60 points, the S&P 500 lost 3 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was down 55 points. Price increases slowed down as 2023 came to a close. New Commerce Department data shows that the annual rate of underlying inflation dropped, hitting its lowest point in nearly 3 years. The numbers show inflation is still elevated, but is continuing to soften. That trend could give the Federal Reserve a green light to start cutting interest rates. The central bank does meet next week, but analysts widely expect the Fed to leave rates unchanged in that meeting. Tesla is recalling almost 200,000 vehicles to fix a software glitch that could obstruct drivers' visibility when reversing. The recall applies to 2023 versions of the models S, X, and Y in the United States. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the free software update to address the issue is being released remotely for owners. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you, Mumbai.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot for getting us all of that action from the U.S. But let's also listen to some important commentary. This comes in from Wharton School's Jeremy Siegel, as well as Edward Jones's Mona Mahajan on the markets and the earnings trajectory from here on.
I'm still positive on the market. We are selling for 20 times earnings, although, I mean, if you're a growth stock, you're selling at 25 to 30. If you're a value stock, you're selling at 15, 14. So there is a difference. Overall, 20 is okay. It's not cheap. And I still think we can get 8 to 10% for the year. The economy is still very strong. I think we're actually going to beat 242 earnings on the S&P 500. As a result, I think stocks could advance.
Say thus far, Q4 earnings can be described as best mixed. We're early days still, about 22% of earnings have been reported for the S&P 500. About 70% of companies have exceeded earnings expectations. So we're somewhat in line with historical norms in terms of the percentage of beats. And when you think about it from a market perspective, markets driven by typically earnings growth plus valuation expansion. So we're seeing the earnings growth component in place. Valuation expansion, we do see the potential in certain segments of the market. As we know, we got tremendous valuation expansion in parts of that tech Magnificent Seven trade last year. We're looking for the rest of the market to play some catch up on that front as well.
All right, that is some important opinion coming in. But like I was mentioning, the big cue from the U.S. this week is going to be the FOMC decision, and the Federal Reserve is expected to leave rates unchanged this week as well. Of course, this is the key cue to track. So here is a word coming in from the former Fed Governor, Frederick Mishkin. Listen in to what he had to say.
I don't think there's going to be a rate cut next week, but I do think that the Fed is exactly on the glide path that they want to be on. And the result of all of this is that inflation is actually on a glide path, a very nice glide path back down to 2%. Now, the reason I think that they have to be a little cautious on lowering interest rates is that they made a mistake with allowing inflation to get out of control. A key part of the element of their success is their credibility. And so to keep their credibility, I think that they have to be somewhat cautious. But right now, there's going to be a lot of discussion of when we might be able to start lowering rates. And in fact, I think that's exactly what is appropriate right now.
All right, that is the word coming in from the former Fed Governor. But with that, let's move on and bring you the final update in our global market wrap this morning. Like I was mentioning, across the board, the global cues seem to be quite positive, and we're getting strong cues from Europe as well. So the French CAC index is up over 2%. The German DAX also put on around 54 points, and the FTSE closed with gains of over 1.5% as well. And it was actually at a 2-week high as well for the FTSE index. If you take a look at the wider pan-European stock 600 index, that also saw a very good move. It was up over 1%, and this is the highest level that we've seen in 2 months. In fact, for the week, the stock 600 is higher by over 3%, 3.1% to be precise over there. Let me just get into some of the, more minor details over there. Shares of LVMH jumped over 12% on Friday after the world's largest luxury group posted a 10% rise in sales, driven by resilient demand, including from China as well. And there's a gauge of the top 10 European luxury stocks, that took the entire index higher. So that was up around 6.7% on Friday as well. More cues to track from Europe, not cues, some data that came through. And the European Central Bank also, meanwhile, left interest rates unchanged. That was a big trigger that we saw across European markets. And it was at that record 4% on Thursday as well. They also reaffirmed the commitment to fighting inflation. However, the ECB President Christine Lagarde pushed back on rate cut expectations and said that the consensus around the table was that it was quite premature to be discussing rate cuts at the moment. So that is a wrap of all of the action that we really got from the European markets. Things looking quite good there as well, at least to end that last week. That's everything that we're looking at globally. But let's now talk about the cues that you should track from an India market standpoint. All of the stocks that will be in focus as well. We have our research team here with the trade setup. Vivek, Hormaz and Nigel are all here. Guys, a very good morning to all of you. We know that this is going to be a crazy week for our own markets. Vivek, to start things off, the global setup looking quite good.
Well, you're absolutely right. So the global setup, the Asian market setup today morning looking quite good. The GIFT Nifty indicates that we are at least going to start, the Feb series on a reasonably strong note. But like you mentioned, this is going to be a very action-heavy week, given the fact that, you have the outcome of the FOMC meet, you have the interim budget, you have a lot of earnings that will be coming through. So this will be something that will keep market participants on their toes. Now, just looking at the numbers once again, when you're talking about European indices, fresh to highs. When you're talking about oil prices now hovering around the $83 a barrel mark. So that continues to be quite firm. Now, talking about the Indian markets in the week gone by, Indian markets were significant underperformers, but however, remember, it was a truncated week last week. Along with that, frontline indices, falling over 1%. Banking index was the key underperformer. A lot of results disappointments coming in from the banking pack. And one important trigger, FI selling last week and especially in January has been quite high, and that has capped the upside as far as the market up move is concerned. So key events like we mentioned, along with that, also remember Feb 1st monthly auto sales too will start. So very action heavy week in the coming week. A lot of earnings today, so the key results to watch out for: Bajaj Finance, BPCL, ITC, NTPC. Good part is GIFT Nifty is indicating a gap up start today and a strong solid start for the Feb series.
All right, solid start, and then let's see how we move from there. Vivek, thanks a lot for bringing us all of those cues. Let's also bring Hormaz in. He's looking at all of the stocks that we should watch. Hormaz, you have 3 days of action to fill us in on.
Coming in on the back of a long weekend, aren't we? But then there are plenty of stocks to track today. Let's start off with Vedanta. The numbers came after market hours, and the lower than anticipated cost is what drove an EBITDA beat. But the debt has risen on account of dividend payout, so we'll keep that on our radar. APL Apollo Tubes, where the management said that there are signs of restocking that are visible after this domestic steel prices saw a correction. Now there are plenty of other earnings reactions today with Tata Technologies, Shriram Finance, Yes Bank, Zen Technologies, and despite along with the earnings, they've also approved a 1,000 crore QIP issue. Seng Industries, where the losses have widened, and Adani Power will also be reacting to results. Indiabulls Housing Finance has approved a rights issue where they plan to raise close to 3,700 crore rupees by issuing close to 25 crore rights shares. The record date has been fixed for the 1st of February. The issue will open on the 7th of Feb, close on the 13th, and the shareholders, the existing shareholders, are eligible to have 1 right share for every 2 full shares that they own. The Piramal Enterprises is going to sell its entire 20% holding in Shriram Ownership Trust for 1,440 crore rupees, and this is the second divestment that they have made in the Shriram group of companies, because last year they had exited Shriram Finance by selling their 8.5% stake for close to 5,000 crores. Jubilant Pharmova, where the wholly owned subsidiary is planning to sell its entire 25% stake in Sophie Biosciences for around $140 million, and the proceeds for that will be used to reduce debt, capex, and for general corporate purposes. Laurus Labs is in focus as well because of the new joint venture. HDFC Bank will be in focus because LIC has received a nod to increase their stake up to 10%, and Coal India has emerged as a successful bidder for a 300 megawatt project in Gujarat. Back to you.
All right, Hormaz, thanks a lot for taking us through that entire list of stocks. We're going to watch for all of these in today's trading session. Finally, Nigel is here with all of the cues from the futures and options space. Nigel, what are you looking at?
Well, morning, Pavitra. Now we put an end to the January series, and if you pull up the intraday charts, you'll see that the last hour, the recovery that we saw both on the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank, that was expiry related. So we could give back some part of what we put on in the final hour of trade. January jinx, well, it continued as we've been making this point, and we ended with a cut of around 2%. In fact, it was the worst January series that we've seen in the last few. So we kept that date with the bears, and that's why, in fact, we ended lower. How is the positioning in the February series, though? Well, at the start of the series, the FIs, they're net short. Remember, that's not such a bad thing. We've been telling you that in the past as well. In absolute terms, the net short contracts are more than 1 lakh contracts. So that, in fact, at some point of time, it provides some bit of a cushion because you can get a bit of a short covering bounce, and history has told us that as well. I'm looking at 2 strikes at the start of the series. The 21,000 put, well, that has a fair bit of open interest build up. That's a total open interest. It's not the change, it's the total open interest out there. And the 21,500 call as well, the total open interest over there. So, you just look at it and you'll see that, in fact, the markets are positioned that on the downside, the 21,000, the 20,950 mark, that gets defended out. And in the last few days, we've gone to around the 21,100 odd mark, and we have seen a bit of a bounce from there. The 50 DMA as well comes in line with them. Those numbers should come up for you on the screen. While you'll get confident that the markets are breaking out only once we get past the 20 DMA on the upside, which is going to be the crucial level. So let's see how this goes. But for the time being, expecting the market to trade in a bit of a range. And as I mentioned earlier, the markets being net short normally is not such a bad thing because it provides legs for a bit of a short covering bounce. Back to you.
All right, Nigel, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those cues. That is the trade setup as we see it this morning. But with that, we need to get into a short break. On the other side, Cipla's Executive Vice Chairman Samina Hamid has decided to step down. We'll bring you more developments on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Now, Cipla is going to be an important stock to watch today after Samina Hamid steps down as Cipla's Executive Vice Chairperson. So, Ekta is here with some details on this. Ekta, take us through what else we know on this, and there's a word from the management as well.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, Samina Hamid has resigned from the position of executive vice chairman of the company. She will continue as a non-executive director, which will be liable to retire by rotation. Now, we did reach out to the management. We did have some sources, however, tell us that this step was in a step in order to have Cipla be managed by professionals. Now, Samina Hamid, while she has been an integral part for the past couple of years, we have had independent management really handling Cipla, with the likes of the Hamid family taking a back seat and the likes of Umang Vora and his team really leading from the front. So the strategy on a larger scale is to basically try and have Cipla managed like a company such as Tata, where the promoters are on the back seat and the management would be, there would be a management from the outside which would be handling the company, and hence this step is in line with that. Cipla did speak to us and they did tell us in a statement that Samina Hamid is stepping down as vice chairperson and is a part of the larger promoter strategy. It is aimed at making Cipla professionally managed company fully, and Ms. Hamid's role was set in place to place a robust management for the long term. So that's now been achieved and hence she's moving on. It's not supposed to be a part of any kind of stake sale plan or program by the company. It is only expected to be in order for professionals to now manage Cipla going forward.
All right, got that, Ekta. Thanks a lot for getting us all of those details. With that, we need to get into another break. But on the other side, we're going to shift focus from equities and talk about all of the cues from the commodity markets. There's been quite a rise in the crude prices, so we'll bring in the details in just a bit. Welcome back. Let's talk about all of the cues from the commodity markets as well, because there's been a lot of action there. Manisha joins us with an update. Manisha, good morning. There's quite a rise in the crude prices.
Oh, well, yes. We've posted 2 weeks of gains, and this is the third straight week where we are trading on a positive side. We've taken above $80 a barrel. We are trading at a 2-month highs right now. And while there have been crises at Red Sea for some time, but now you have direct fuel tankers being attacked. The latest one has been a Houthi missile hitting a Trafigura-operated fuel tanker. So now this brings supplies into question. Also, the Russian export is going to go down as the refineries in Russia are under repair after drone attacks there. The markets also are reacting to the positive economic growth numbers from US. The China stimulus has been a supportive factor as well. And the markets will now watch out for the OPEC and allies meeting on 1st of February. The money managers also have raised their net long positions in crude futures and options as well, betting on higher prices from here on as well. And that in turn also seems to be supporting markets.
Okay, Manisha, thanks a lot for getting us all of those details. That is crude around $84 a barrel. Like Manisha was mentioning, 3 U.S. troops were killed and dozens were wounded after an unmanned aerial drone attack on U.S. forces stationed in northeastern Jordan near the Syrian border. Biden blamed Iran-backed groups for the attack. This is the first deadly strike against U.S. forces since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October. So that is an important update coming in as well. I also want to bring you some important news from the political front in India. Janata Dal United's President Nitish Kumar takes his oath as the Chief Minister of Bihar for a record 9th time. This comes just hours after he announced his decision of switching sides from the opposition group INDIA to now rejoining the NDA with the BJP government. The switch also comes just 18 months after he joined hands with the opposition. So pretty wild swings coming in there as far as the political picture goes for India too. But with that, let's also talk about some important updates from the world of sports, because we saw all of the Australian Open action come to a finale this weekend. India's Rohan Bopanna became the oldest male player in the Open era to win a Grand Slam title at the age of 43 years, as he and his partner Matthew Ebden won the men's doubles finals at the Australian Open. Rohan is now also the world's oldest #1 ranked tennis player after this tournament. If you look at the women's finals played on Saturday, Aryna Sabalenka breezed past China's Zhang Qian in straight sets to defend her Australian Open crown. So that was an action-packed game as well. And in the men's final played yesterday, Italy's Jannik Sinner came back from being 2 sets down to defend Dani Medvedev to win his first ever Grand Slam championship. So a lot of action, like I mentioned, from the world of sports coming through. But that's all the time that we have on this edition of Power Breakfast. We're going to wind down with the news. The Asian markets are looking quite good. And the GIFT Nifty is indicating a big gap up to start off what is going to be a hectic week. Thanks for tuning in. We have Bazaar Morning Call after this short break.